I'm here with Halfcoordinated over at AoD. He just got out of his accessibility and gaming panel that he was in. A lot of really interesting points in there. Hopefully that gets to make it online on like YouTube or something. You should definitely check it out. I even learned quite a bit of stuff in it. And I thought I had, kind of a concept of it, but just such a wide range of topics discussed. One of the things I didn't get to catch at the panel that I thought was important to get your take on is how do you feel about a lot of the more alternative controller schemes that have been emerging more in more modern games? I would say probably one of the progenitors of it would be like the Wiimote, and Nintendo's kind of been one of those companies that's pushed it with things like using the stylus, having the separate gamepad for the Wii U, and even things with like the Oculus, VR, and peripherals involved with that. Do you have any insight as to some of the features that might be added to these devices, or how maybe that idea can progress into the future to make it more accessible to a wider audience? Or do you think it's just kind of the tough nut to crack?
It is indeed a tough nut to crack, actually. There's a lot of different things with that. It can be a bane or a boon for accessibility. And there's a lot of it, but it's reliant on the developers, and since a lot of this is going to be about Nintendo, I suppose, about them actually including certain options on their systems. So you mentioned the touchpad. I mentioned during the talk, say Bayonetta 2 having the touchpad control scheme. This is where you touch on the pad to basically poke enemies. That's an amazing feature, right? That's something that wouldn't be possible with a traditional controller. There are challenges with these different controllers, though. A lot of it assumes that you are the same shape, that you have the same movement, that you have all the different, again, the same rotations, everything that average, I don't want to say average.
What they feel an average
is a proper set, and not everyone has these ranges, and that becomes a block for these. So I think it's important whenever possible to make control movement an option, but not a requirement for motion type of control. And because it can make certain things more accessible, right? Because some people, say, may be able to handle flailing around, but can't handle pressing a lot of different buttons at once. And so it becomes accessible in that sense. You mentioned VR.
One of the big reasons I mentioned VR in particular also is because, I mentioned a lot of Nintendo projects, and you did mention that was kind of the focal point. But the fact that we have things like the Oculus and other input and visual devices, it begs the question, is this, with this direction that games are kind of heading in, like almost forking off from traditional control schemes, like just kind of the challenges that are brought on by accessibility? Because it doesn't look like, everybody looked at the Wii and they were like, okay, well, that's great, now let's move on. But, it seems like we're continuing to soldier on into a kind of different era of controllers. So
with VR, and you're absolutely right, we're just continuing to get all these different possible input methods. It goes back to the base of the first thing I said. It's reliant on if the developers implement proper features so that you can have that be accessible. So for VR, for example, enabling someone to move with very basic head turning and other inputs that you can only really have with VR. You're all of a sudden turning your head is what turns your camera, right?
Right.
Someone with limited movement in their lower parts of their body, that's amazing, right? Now they can move the controller, or they can change what direction they're looking very simply, and so that can be a great boon. It's a lot of VR that I've seen although is not really now, of course, they have that turning the cameras, but it's not really working within what would actually make it accessible.
I remember you really very, very briefly touched on eye tracking. Do you think that that's maybe an avenue that might kind of show up in that?
That would be, I think that would be hard to implement with the VR goggles. I'm not sure how. I mean, that's something that would have to actually build into the goggles.
Yeah.
So that might be a more significant challenge, but maybe worthwhile. It would definitely be worthwhile. It's just would the company see it as worthwhile?
Right.
As something to but again, as I said, with VR, a lot of them are assuming a base level of control that not everyone is going to meet, and so it ends up often being more of a block than a boon to accessibility, and something I hope changes. It's something I hope it turns around on. Yeah.
All right. Any other kind of comments as far as the kind of this forking of control stream or control systems? Let's say. So most of the stuff you kind of covered in the panel was a big thing too. So I guess two things that I'd like to mention about the panel, just as my personal takeaway, because I unfortunately didn't catch the first like 10-15 minutes.
Okay, that was mostly introduction of myself.
Yeah, so. But there was a huge, two huge takeaway points that I took from it. One of them in particular, you mentioned near the end actually, where it's not just about people with, the accessibility isn't just for people with government realized disabilities,
yes.
But even something as simple as, I broke my arm. Now I can't play this game that I used to play with this control scheme because, I always used my other arm to do this or that.
Exactly.
Or even just like as you get older, your shoulder gives out or something, maybe you can't pitch a ball.
Your hand gets arthritis. It's something that really doesn't get focused, especially as the gaming demographic ages, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to quit playing games. I'm pretty sure you don't want to quit playing games. So we're going to get older, and it's going to get harder. My dad, he's in his 60s. He still plays games. He's playing Far Cry Primal probably right now, but as we're speaking. But he still plays games. He loves games. There are certain challenges just to being an older individual.
Yeah. The other big takeaway that I got from it was just the idea that you don't want people to just be able to play the game, but if they put investment into it, they should be able to excel.
Yes.
You shouldn't feel like there's this barrier that you can't overcome just because they won't let you remap buttons, or like there's this certain movement that's very difficult for you to do, and that's not something that you want to experience. You not only not want to experience it, but you also want to excel and feel like you are getting all that you can out of the game.
Yes.
And that's something that was really big as a takeaway too, especially when you talk about like how frustrating it can be. So like when I rate games, you do like 1 to 5, and I've had people ask me, what's a 0? I said the only time I would ever give a 0 is if you literally couldn't control the game or it literally didn't work.
Yes.
Because it's no longer a game. But for so many individuals, there are sections of games where like it does not work for them. Like they cannot do what they need to do to progress.
And the reason I went over being able to excel a lot, I went over it multiple times throughout that particular panel, that's something that isn't covered in a lot of accessibility talks that I see, but it's very important to me personally. I mean, I speedrun.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm pretty okay at games when the games allow me to be. But again, my limitations are pretty light. I can have full use of one hand, and that's a lot more than a lot of people have to deal with. A lot less than a lot of people have to overcome to be able to play a game. And I really want people to actually have that chance to excel in the game. it's a wonderful feeling when you play a game well, or even if the game just kind of sort of just makes you feel like you're playing well, gives you that feedback, and it's kind of hard to describe just how good that feels. And it's a shame people say, oh, well, you can do these sort of inputs okay enough to play, but you know, you're not going to be able to get up here. You're not going to be able to reach that next level of play. But that's fine for you, and that's insulting.
I understand. So, any parting words? Any shout-outs? Anything you'd like to say about the event, or you know, anything really quick?
I mean, I'm a bit exhausted to give proper shout-outs. I have slept like 5 hours after being on a 6-hour, on a plane for more than 6 hours actually to Californithon. But so, it's a good event. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to see a lot of old friends, see new ones. So I'm glad I was brought out.
All right. So Half-Coordinated. Again, make sure you check it out. Hopefully it'll get on YouTube. I'm pretty sure it will. This is Animation on Display, I believe is the exact name of it. AoD 2017 with Half-Coordinated. Check out his panel. It was accessibility and gaming. Thank you, guys.